What really happened in those few seconds of silence on live television, when two of Asia's most familiar faces suddenly seemed unprepared for what was coming next? The studio lights were bright, almost unforgiving, the kind that leave no place for secrets to hide. Millions of viewers were tuned in, expecting the usual rhythm of smiles, polite answers, and carefully rehearsed charm. Wang and Shen Yue had done this before. Interviews, live broadcasts, red carpets, laughter on cue. This was familiar territory. And yet, on this night, something felt different. Something in the air shifted before a single word was spoken. The host introduced them as always, with warmth and admiration. The audience applauded. Cameras rolled. But when the applause faded, there was a pause. Not long. Just long enough to feel heavy. Dylan glanced sideways, not toward the cameras, but toward Shen Yue. She met his eyes, then looked down, as if bracing herself. Viewers at home leaned closer to their screens without knowing why. Live television rarely captures truth by accident. But sometimes, when timing collides with emotion, it does. For years, Wang and Shen Yue have existed at the center of an extraordinary cultural phenomenon. From the moment they appeared together on screen, audiences projected onto them stories of connection, chemistry, and shared history. Fans followed every interview, every interaction, every moment that hinted at something deeper than acting. The industry, of course, learned to package that fascination carefully. Public images were polished. Narratives were controlled. And both stars played their roles with professionalism and grace. Until this moment. The host cleared their throat and mentioned an announcement from their agency. The words were neutral, almost casual. But the reaction was not. Dylan's expression tightened, just slightly, like someone trying to maintain composure while standing at the edge of something irreversible. Shen Yue inhaled slowly, the kind of breath people take when they're preparing themselves to hear news they already know will change everything. What kind of announcement makes two seasoned professionals forget the cameras? The agency's name carried weight. In the entertainment world, agencies are more than managers. They are architects of careers, guardians of images, silent decision-makers behind every opportunity and every limitation. When an agency speaks, it rarely does so without calculation. And when it chooses a live broadcast as the stage, the message is never small. The host continued, carefully reading from a prepared card. Words like future, direction, and new chapter floated through the studio. To casual viewers, it may have sounded routine. But to those watching closely, something else was happening. Dylan nodded, but his eyes betrayed a conflict between acceptance and reluctance. Shen Yue smiled, but it was the kind of smile that trembles at the edges, fragile and fleeting. This was not performance. This was reaction. In the seconds that followed, social media erupted. Clips spread faster than the broadcast itself. Viewers replayed the moment where Shen Yue's voice softened, where Dylan hesitated before answering a simple question. Comment sections filled with speculation, concern, and disbelief. What did the announcement really mean? A career separation? A strategic rebranding? The end of an era that fans had grown up with? Yet beneath the noise of online theories lay a quieter truth. Live TV had captured something raw. Two individuals confronting change in real time. The agency's statement, as later summarized, spoke of growth and individual paths. Language carefully chosen to sound optimistic while acknowledging transition. No scandals. No conflicts. Just evolution. But evolution, even when necessary, can be painful. Especially when it involves letting go of a shared chapter that defined a generation of viewers. For Wang, this moment marked a crossroads. From his breakout success to his rise as a global name, much of his journey had been defined by bold roles and public expectation. Standing there under the lights, he appeared not as a star, but as a young man reflecting on how far he had come and how uncertain the road ahead might be. For Shen Yue, the weight felt different but no less heavy. Known for her warmth and relatability, she had become a symbol of sincerity in an industry often criticized for artifice. Her silence during parts of the interview spoke louder than any statement. It was the silence of someone honoring a past while preparing to step into something unknown. The host eventually moved on. The show continued. The cameras cut to commercials. But the moment had already etched itself into public memory. What makes this live broadcast so powerful is not what was said, but what could not be said. Agencies release announcements all the time. Careers shift. Partnerships change. But rarely do we witness the human cost of those decisions in real time. Rarely do we see eyes glisten, hands tighten, voices falter while millions are watching. In the days that followed, official clarifications emerged. Calm words, reassurances, promises of exciting futures. Yet fans continued to return to that single clip. The pause, the glance, the breath before speaking. Because in that brief, unscripted window, Wang and Shen Yue reminded the world of something easy to forget. Behind every polished announcement is a person adjusting to loss and possibility at the same time. This was not the end of their stories. If anything, it was a turning point, the kind that documentaries are built around. The moment before transformation, when uncertainty hangs in the air and the future has not yet decided what shape it will take. And so the question lingers, long after the studio lights dimmed and the broadcast ended. When the cameras stop rolling and the agency statements fade into archives, what remains of that shared moment, and how will it redefine the paths of two stars who, for just a few seconds on live television, allowed the world to see them not as icons, but as human beings standing at the edge of change? What followed after that broadcast was not silence, but something far more revealing. In the hours after the show ended, the world outside the studio seemed to move faster than usual. Headlines multiplied, clips looped endlessly, and every pause, every glance, every unfinished sentence was examined as if it held a hidden code. Yet inside that storm of attention, Wang and Shen Yue disappeared from view. No immediate posts. No cheerful reassurances. Just absence. And absence, in an industry built on constant visibility, speaks volumes. For years, their professional journeys had run parallel, sometimes intersecting, sometimes drifting apart, but always linked by public memory. Their names had become shorthand for a certain era, a certain feeling. To many, they represented not just successful careers, but a time when stories felt simpler and connections felt genuine. That is why this moment landed so deeply. It wasn't just about contracts or strategy. It felt personal, even to those watching from thousands of miles away. Behind closed doors, decisions like this are rarely sudden. Agencies plan months, sometimes years in advance. Meetings happen quietly. Futures are mapped out on whiteboards and spreadsheets. But no matter how carefully something is planned, there is always a moment when planning collides with reality. That collision had happened on live television. Sources later described the announcement as necessary, a step toward independence, a move designed to allow each artist to grow without the gravitational pull of shared expectations. On paper, it made sense. Individually, both Dylan and Shen Yue had reached points in their careers where new challenges demanded full focus. But logic does not cancel emotion. And it certainly does not erase history. In retrospect, the signs had been there. Fewer joint appearances. Interviews that subtly shifted from we to I. Projects announced separately rather than together. At the time, fans dismissed these details as coincidence. After the live broadcasts, they felt like quiet foreshadowing. What made the moment unforgettable was not drama in the traditional sense. No raised voices. No visible conflict. Just restraint. The kind that comes from people who understand the weight of what they are experiencing and choose dignity over spectacle. Dylan's controlled responses. Shen Yue's measured calm. Both carrying the knowledge that whatever they said would be replayed, quoted, and interpreted endlessly. And yet, even in restraint, emotion finds a way through. When Shen Yue finally spoke about looking forward, her voice carried warmth, but also distance, as if she were already stepping away from something she loved. Dylan followed with words about gratitude and growth, phrases he had used many times before, but never quite like this. There was an edge of finality beneath the optimism. For the audience, this wasn't just another celebrity update. It felt like watching the final scene of a long-running story, one where the ending arrives not with certainty, but with open space. The kind of ending that asks viewers to sit with unresolved feelings. In the days that followed, industry insiders weighed in. Some praised the timing, calling it bold and honest. Others questioned why such a sensitive shift was revealed on live television at all. But perhaps that was the point. Live TV removes the safety net. It captures truth before it can be softened. As the conversation slowly evolved, something unexpected happened. Instead of fading, interest deepened. Fans began revisiting old interviews, early performances, moments when everything felt new. Not out of nostalgia alone, but out of respect. A recognition that what had been shared was real, even if it was always professional. And for Wang and Shen Yue, the future began to take shape quietly. New projects were rumored. Scripts exchanged hands. Meetings scheduled. Each step forward was cautious but deliberate. Not a rejection of the past, but a continuation on separate paths. The kind of separation that acknowledges what once was, without being trapped by it. Looking back now, that live broadcast feels less like an announcement and more like a threshold. A line between chapters. Before it, familiarity. After it, possibility. This is how careers evolve. Not always with applause, but with reflection. Not always with certainty, but with courage. Years from now, when their stories are told in full, that night will remain a pivotal scene. The moment when two artists stood under unforgiving lights and chose honesty over comfort. When they allowed the world to witness change as it happened, unscripted and unfiltered. And perhaps that is why it still resonates. Because in a world obsessed with perfect images and polished narratives, Wang and Shen Yue reminded us that growth often begins in silence, in pauses, in moments when the future has not yet learned how to introduce itself. The cameras captured it. The audience felt it. And long after the broadcast ended, the question remained, not as gossip, but as reflection. What does it mean to move forward when the past still matters? The answer, it seems, is still unfolding.